Okay. So this next guest is a remarkable, interesting, unique, beautiful, incredible human being, friend of mine, um, Mr. Wolf. And Mr. Wolf introduced me to synesthesia. I did not know there was a name for the what it was. I didn't necessarily know there was like intricacies and breakdowns on what that consists of. But if you've ever counted and you've seen physical numbers pop up, or you've taken a bite out of an apple and saw colors, or if you hear words and you certain flavors come up, or if you hear words or sounds and certain colors and flavors start to happen, that is synesthesia. And so Mr. Wolf decided to share his story in the way that he does best. And so we're here to talk about that. We're here to listen to what he has to say about that. And then he wrote a book that he is working on publishing. He should be publishing soon. And just another thing, guys, we're about to wrap up this season. I've got a couple of more interviews that are, again, super incredible and amazing people that do just phenomenal things that are super genuinely inspiring. And so I'm excited. Anyhow, let's get to it. Right. Wulfric Hugo Osborne. And Mr. Wolf has a book, The Bad Wolf Confessions of a Synesthetic Life. So, Mr. Wolf, thanks for coming, and I really appreciate you joining us.
For having me.
So, you have synesthesia. Can you explain that? People have many different forms. What I've educated myself on is that there are different forms and different ways of being. I assume that eventually, if not already, it'll be put on the spectrum. So,
Oh yeah, there's a lot of
it's
back and forth about that.
yeah.
Synesthesia. Yeah, that's a fun word. Very, very flavorful. But essentially what it is, it's an old word too. The term literally means union of the senses. The gist of it is that pretty much all of us have like our sensory perceptions, like one or more, or in my case, all of your sensory perceptions overlap. And then you have the other more rare forms, and that's me, where you have what's called mirror touch synesthesia, which is essentially you're like hyper empathic. You feel other people's emotional sensations, you feel other people's physical sensations. There's also auditory tactile synesthesia, which is another one that I have. And that's pretty much literally what it sounds like. You feel sound. You either feel the sound waves impacting your body, and that creates physical sensations or reactions, or sounds themselves, or sounds on their own, generate physical sensations. And yeah, I kind of have it both ways, because sometimes I don't always feel the sound, but sometimes I'll hear sounds and it feels horrible. It doesn't taste very good. And sometimes the colors are very pretty, but the sound itself just hurts horribly. And then you also have.
Can you give an example of that?
So there are Okay, so those of you who are in the South and you're watching us, um, you have the Harris Teeter grocery stores. Um, they have these sort of things in other places, but there's a Harris Teeter, um, like actually in our area, um, and they have these sonic deterrents positioned above their entry doors, and they emit a very, 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 very high frequency sound. Most people don't hear anything at all. Um, Technically, anybody who's an adult isn't supposed to hear. I think it's somebody told me that it was meant for teenagers because it irritates them, so they don't loiter. But for me, because I'm also hypersensitive to light and sound with my auditory tactile synesthesia, I don't just hear those ultra high frequencies. They cut. I feel like I'm getting it's like my tongue gets slashed with razor blades. It ends up um illuminating like a bright pink color in my eyes. It tastes horrible. It's not really it's kind of sour, but it's just bitter. Like
Hmm.
yeah. And then there's like a shockwave throughout my entire body and I feel like a rung church bell. So I usually just don't go to that Harris Teeter,
Right.
but fortunately, not all the Harris Teeters have those things. I used to think there was one time where I thought, oh, maybe they don't have the sonic deterrent anymore. And then as soon as I got in the parking lot, it's like, no, 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 no. There's another one. We'll go to the next one. Just go to the next one.
Could sense it. Yeah. Okay. Thank you for that example. And let's see what's oh, you were going into your other forms.
Oh, oh, yeah, you want to go to all of them? There's so many.
Well,
Uh,
you don't have to, go
oh,
deep,
no, that's
but you
fine.
can.
Yeah, apparently, so like, so me specifically, like, not everybody who has synesthesia they have all the forms of synesthesia at one
Mhm.
time. I'm unfortunately kind of rare in that regard. I have almost everything at one time. I met, at a burn festival. Um, it's kind of a music festival for those who don't know. Don't worry about it. I met a synesthete. He has a form of synesthesia where every time he hears numbers, like in his, like just like his ocular vision, he'll see whatever specific number that you shout out in like a different space, like say like 4 is over here and like 56 is over here and 64 is over here and it's this small and 3 is like right over here and number 1 is way up here and number 2 is way back there. Um There's that form of synesthesia. I don't have that one. Um,
So it's like a form of dyslexia, but
eh,
with the in other words, there's what people would understand to be like a psychedelic inclinations.
yeah, that's so much.
Yeah, that's what I would see people how they would experience it or would understand the explanation of it to be like
Yeah, like
psychedelic hallucinations, but it's actually it's a part of your neuro, like,
yeah, I'm just wired that way.
yeah.
Yeah, like so like early on, I would describe because this feels weird because I go like, oh, I have this one, and I have this one,
Hmm.
and I have this one,
Hmm.
and it's like, what don't you have? Well, I don't have that one. Um, but yeah, there's a color grapheme synesthesia, and that's I think that's one of the more common ones because and that one is pretty much if I see words and numbers, just letters, numbers and everything, numbers individually have a flavor and a color. letters individually have a flavor and a color and a texture, and then words put together have a unique flavor and a texture. There's some words I don't like because I don't like the way they taste in my mouth. Like literally, it's like I hear this word, I get this flavor filling up my mouth, and I'm like, "Blah, I don't want that one." Other words I go like, "Oh, that tastes yummy," and some words kind of taste like a lot of words taste like very lightly flavored water,
Mhm.
and just different flavors. Some words are very big and bold and flavorful, and I feel like I just bit into a blueberry cheesecake or something. Um,
Give us one of those words.
oh God, I hate that. I can't think of one off the top of my head. Um, it's easier when I think about just sounds in general because,
Hmm.
like, with music, I get a whole bunch of different colors and flavors and stuff like that. There was in college, because I went to school for graphic design. One of our assignments was, and I misinterpreted the assignment, but the assignment was to make a visual representation of a piece of music. And I took that a little too literally. Everybody else had like poetic visual expression of the piece of music that they chose for their project. I literally chose a piece of electronic trance music, and I literally like just drew out all the different like wavelengths that showed up in my vision, the colors. I couldn't really describe the flavors or anything, but yeah, there are some sounds that taste like the hum, not really the hum, but just like the ping of piano keys, and the flavor kind of melts like white gold, and it's drizzled in honeysuckle, and and there's like this visual sensation of like, you know, ice skating trails on a midnight starry sky. Like some of these things are really yummy, and some of them are just eh.
There's a little bit of a neutrality in them.
Yeah, a
And
lot of
then,
words
yeah,
have
there might even be, I would assume there may even be like, I think I've even heard you say like some that are uh, pleasantly metallic, and then some that are unpleasantly like metallic. And
yeah.
so there's even a sensation of being too sweet,
Mm-hmm.
and some that are like, what would you say? It might be sour, but it's a pleasant sour, and then
Yeah,
and
it's like
then
Sour
not so
Patch
pleasant
Kid.
sour, right? So it's not even, it's partly also like each um individual flavor, smell, feeling, or tone. It might have elements of what would generally be perceived as, um, in a general way, assigned an unpleasant, but it's not. It has a pleasant part to it too. Am I right?
Some of it, yeah. Like even smells have colors, and they have, and it's not necessarily the smell that has like that
Mm-hmm.
hurts, but the color that it's producing in my brain.
Mm-hmm.
The color hurts my eyes. I'm like, I smell this. It's not like horrible, but I don't like that shade of magenta. It looks pale and sickly. Like somebody took all the wow out of it or something. It just there's a bunch of stuff like that.
Okay, so thank you for sharing that stuff. It gives people a perspective, and hopefully, other folks with synesthesia can identify with that part. So, um, in general, how are people perceptive of, and how do you assess those who are around you in a way that you're comfortable enough sharing that information?
Um, eh, it's kind of a give and take. There's most of the time I meet people where you just don't say anything. You just
Hmm.
can't say anything. It's one of those things where, like, if you're around somebody who's relatively conservative, or if they seem to have like a very, very quote normal experience in life, then it's generally like, yeah, I might break your brain with this. You're a little too sheltered for me. Sorry, kid. That's okay. You're not old enough for this yet. It's okay. Call me in a decade or so, something. I don't know. But then also I'll meet people who would probably be very, like, obviously, like, they're eccentric, they're artistic and everything. Um, Artists get this more than just
Hmm.
your average individual, but
More creative people type.
yeah.
Hmm.
But even but like, and not even all of them have synesthesia. Although I did meet this one guy. He works in he was like a what's the word? He was a conductor or something, or he worked with conductors, and he has the like the sound to color to flavor form of synesthesia. He didn't even know that it was a thing. It seems to be really common amongst musicians. I think that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
But but I've met people where you would think that they would be okay with this kind of thing. And it's not that they're not okay with it. It's just that,
They have a hard time identifying.
no, they kind of treat it like, all right, so sometimes they'll kind of treat it like it's a party trick. Like, oh my God, what does this taste like? Oh my God, what does this look like? Oh my God, what is this? And this. And I'm like, God damn it, I'm not a sideshow.
Right.
But
Right.
other times, like, it's like, yeah, and sometimes in the same vein, they fail to appreciate the intensity, and how it's like, yeah, I know this is really cool to you, and you're like, oh my God, I have to take acid or something to experience this kind of thing. I'm like, yeah, well, I have to take acid to, like, get a handle on this kind of thing. So we're having two different experiences there. But everybody wants to sit there and call it a gift. It's like, oh my God, that's such a gift. That's so beautiful. It's such a gift. And I'm sitting here just like, yeah, for me, it's more like a cosmic joke
Yeah.
because this can hurt when it's too much.
Yeah.
I think somebody even made a toy of, like, so my auditory tactile synesthesia. Like I said, I'll feel the impact of sound waves on my body, and it creates like other physical sensations and flavor sensations and color sensations. But there's this company, I forget their name. You've probably seen it before. They've had commercials for a while, but it's literally like it's like a subwoofer or something, and you strap it to your chest, and you plug in your iPhone or whatever into it, and then you play the music, and it literally projects the sound into your torso.
Yep.
And I look at that and I'm like, that's often a very unpleasant experience for me,
Right.
and you made that into a toy.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I'm
yeah.
sure that that would be invasive on some level. There's one guy video I saw where he was at a tech show. He felt like that was the only place he could do it in a hotel, and it literally shut down how people could read from a book, and they couldn't. The vibration went into their skull, and it was silent to hear for the most part, but it went
Mm.
into it. He gave the science, and the science was that the vibration went into the skull, and it confused the auditory and uh, verbal connections enough to where they actually couldn't read the words and say them at the same time. And there was only one person that was able to continue reading, but they still had a struggling way of doing it to get through it. Everybody else, which there was somewhere around 10 to 15 other people, in other words, his machine worked. And it was like, wow, that's crazy that something was invented that way. So, okay, so how can people educate themselves? What can they do to find information on synesthesia in general?
So, because I mean, of course, yeah, I had to learn this the hard way too. Information on synesthesia, like a mass amount of information on synesthesia, it's kind of scattered. I mean, you can look it up on Wikipedia, and Wikipedia will give you a whole bunch of different articles talking about the different types of it, and it'll mention like noted people who have synesthesia or like or in whatever form that they have. Um, there are people who have written, their own memoirs. I think one book is titled "Born on a Blue Day." That yeah, that's one of the books. But yeah, there are other people who have their books and then they explain their experiences and everything. Um, there is um an American Synesthesia Association, but I don't have a lot of information on them. I actually tried to get in touch with them at one point, and yeah, I never heard back from them.
Do they have a website or a
Yeah, they have a
address?
website. It's http colons syn um esthesia .info. But yeah, like I said, I don't really get a lot of I don't really get much from them.
Okay. I have noticed on some there I've looked it up, and on some cases there's people that are connected on social media that get connected together because they either have it or they're interested in the studies behind it, because it covers so many different things. So it has to do with all the senses and how they're mapped
Mhm.
in our brains. So um, the the next question would be about you. We mentioned your book, and so from that, like, we can get started into what made you decide to write the book. I assume that it has a lot to do with the awareness on some level and sharing your own experiences. And what when do you think people will be able to find your book? Where can they find your book?
Um, it's like I'm publishing it soon, within like the next week. It'll go on Amazon. Um, because yeah, self-publishing. I mean, um, it's like yeah, and I decided to write it because yeah, um, it's like I ended up learning that I'm a particularly rare case. Like even while I was writing early on, I kept looking up online, and even earlier today I was looking up online. I'm like, are you sure that there isn't somebody else with my severity in this? Are you sure? Like like just double check. Like please, like are you sure? And yeah, I'm kind of disappointed to learn that there isn't really anybody else. But mathematically speaking, there should be at least 100,000 other people like me, or at least, or at the very least, I'll reach a handful of them or their friends. And because when I was younger, um, we didn't really have any resources. Like, yes, kids, I'm old. I remember when AOL was brand new, okay, and dial-up was a thing, and when you wanted to download anything off of the internet, it took all night. So yeah, information back then was really lacking. You just didn't know anything. You didn't have anybody to um relate to or anything like that. And I was just like, well, it would have been nice if I had a book that kind of went through all the things. Because that would have been really helpful, and that way I wouldn't have felt like I was going completely out of my mind.
So you've put into perspective some of those things in the book.
Hmm.
Awesome. All right. So, from that point, let's get started in finding out about you and um, how that came about from being having, I should say, having your experience the way that you did growing up, and then moving into um, doing what you're doing now. I think that that's really interesting. So,
Oh, yeah. What? It's like once upon a time
yeah,
in
yeah.
a lands far to the north. No, really. Um, um, like when I
You
was
didn't
little,
even
like,
really. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
oh no,
You
you're good.
you didn't even really know that
Mm-mm.
you had anything like that, even other symptoms that you may have.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's the
so
yeah, that's the thing
coming
that
through that, yeah.
you hear from everybody who learns that they have synesthesia. Everybody, we're all sitting here going like, I didn't know this was a thing. I didn't know that this wasn't what anybody else could experience. Because, well, like, because I've heard so many testimonies where people are like, yeah, I describe the colors as flavors, I describe the letters as flavors, I describe this or that, and people are looking at us like, you're weird. I'm like, but but because, like, you're told, or at least I was told, um you're just like anybody else, there's nothing particularly special about you, blah blah blah. So you figure like, oh, so if I feel this thing, then somebody else feels it too. And it's like, no, no, that's not how people work, that's not how the body works, that's not how the brain works. It's like your experience isn't everybody else's. But it's like, ah, whatever, you're a little kid, it doesn't really matter. But so I had a more conservatively minded family.
Mhm.
And again, this is early 90s. This is the kind of family where mental health issues, um, you don't really want to talk about those things because you don't want other people to know about those things because of the scandal of mental illness and all that. It's just too embarrassing. So a lot of
Yes, just
gaslighting.
go to the doctor, get your pills,
Yeah,
and
well, but
that's it.
if you're even lucky enough for the parents to sit there and go like, just get the pills and just don't say anything.
Right.
I didn't even have a parent that was like, get the pills. My parent was more like, he doesn't need pills. He's making excuses. He's being a hypochondriac. So all in all the time, you're getting this message like your body is sitting here going like, your brain and your body is sitting here going like, there's something wrong. But the adults around you are going like, no, there's nothing wrong with you. You're just making excuses. You're overreacting, and you're like, but I'm not even thinking about it. I'm not trying to do anything. Eventually, when your teachers and your guidance counselors and your therapists are all like, okay, there's an issue, and your parent needs to deal with it, but then the parent doesn't want to deal with it. So you just go on thinking like, all right, I'm screwed up. There's something wrong with me. You're lucky enough to get into college. I mean, you start dealing with the issues even more. And then it finally gets to a point where it is breaking your brain so hard that you have a psychotic breakdown. And then your friends just have to take you to the emergency room, and you spend the next week in the behavioral treatment ward, and they scan my brain. They did a CT scan and they did an MRI. And so in my case, apparently I have a little bit of extra gray matter where it's not supposed to be.
Hmm.
I don't know that this is from as far as I know, this isn't common for everybody with synesthesia. But like I said, I have a bunch of the rare forms, and I have them all at one time, and that's not supposed to happen. And on the record, as far as like the record is concerned, the last time somebody with anything resembling my level of severity existed, he died 27 years before I was born. Um So it was just kind of like this one-off thing. I've heard of people mention like they've heard of somebody else like that, but I haven't really found much information to substantiate it. But yeah, like, you get into the hospital, they do all the tests, they
Is
see that
this
there's something amiss, and they don't really know what it is. They just know that you're losing your mind, you're in pain all the time, like psychological pain, emotional pain, like I'm experiencing depression. It doesn't help that I have ADHD as well. But they were like, there's definitely something, if
other
there's something weird here.
other than ADHD?
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
like, okay, we can't really explain all your symptoms. We see that your brain is a little odd, but we're gonna put you on some medication and we're gonna keep you for a week. And if that medication looks like it's having a positive effect on you, then we'll send you home with your pills. And that's essentially what happened. And I was on the pills for 4 years. Kind of lost my job at Walmart because of those pills. Because they made me sleep 11 hours a day.
Real quick.
Uh-huh.
Hold your thought where you are. Is this before you found out that you had
Yeah,
synesthesia
this is
at
all
all? You didn't
before.
even know the word yet.
Nope.
Okay. I just wanted to put that
Yeah.
in there.
Didn't know a thing, didn't know that there was such a thing. Like, it's funny, like when you're little, like when you're really little, it kind of seems like, and it seems like to your classmates as well, it kind of seems like you have superpowers or something because your hearing is so sensitive and you feel these things and you know what this person is feeling before they even express it and stuff like that. But all the while, as time goes on and nothing's being treated and the intensity is building up day after day after day, and it just gets painful, and then you just deal with it like it's, well, this is your lot in life. And then, like I said, psychological breakdown, get into the hospital, they put you on pills. But even after they put you on the pills, so they put me on Risperdal, which is an, ugh, hate saying this. Yeah, it's for those of you who haven't ever heard of Risperdal, it's an antipsychotic. They put me on an antidepressant, and they put me on a muscle relaxer, and hence why I was sleeping 11 hours a day because pretty much all of those pills are sedatives. Um, so I wasn't getting the intensity of, you know, light stimulation, the intensity, or not as much intensity from sound stimulation. I was still bothered by sound, but I was kind of numb to the effects. I'm still tasting everything. I'm still smelling the colors and things like that, or seeing colors and like the things that I smell. I'm still getting all of the visual stuff. Um, but because the overall intensity of it is low, I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm on the crazy people pills, and at least I don't, at least I'm not having nightmares anymore. At least I'm not feeling in pain all the time, and I'm not understanding why. But eventually, this is about, where are we? This is in 2010. So yeah, like I said, I was on the pills for 4 years. Um, and I ended up making a friend, and he actually recognized my symptoms because he's older. So he's been around the block, he's seen this and that. So we're just having casual conversation, and I talk about words that taste like this, or colors that taste like this, or sounds like taste like this. Also, it kind of helped that he himself he used to be a DJ, so he's working with music all the time. He loves the orchestra and classical music and things like that. But like I mentioned earlier, I've noticed like a lot of people who are musicians end up having like one or more of the auditory forms of synesthesia. So it was familiar to him. And he asked me if I had ever heard of the term before, synesthesia. And I was like, no. And he's like, look this up. And I so like look it up, and it's on Wikipedia right there. And then I'm reading through this, and it's just like point after point after point after point. I'm like,
Hmm.
that's me. Like, wait, that's me. Wait, this isn't normal? And he's like, no. I was like, wait, no, how many other people get this? And it's like, not many. And I was like, so people don't get this? It's like, no. People don't get this? Like, no. They don't taste this? Like, no. They don't hear this? Like, no. And I'm just like,
Oh wow.
I'm like, you mean to tell me that this has been a thing and it's been known for all this time and nobody told me? It's like, well, nobody knows to tell you anything because nobody really talks about it.
Yeah.
Like if you go into the UK or Europe, you'll hear more people who actually do know about it. It is
Hmm.
something that it's even in their news. Like every
Hmm.
now and then you'll see it in the news. Like, hey, we found somebody else like this. We learned something else about synesthesia. Blah 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 blah. In America, I don't hear anything except one. There was this one time. He's a neurologist in Boston, and he has synesthesia. I think he was on the View once. But yeah, other than that, I haven't really heard anything. Every other time I've heard about synesthesia, it was in the media, and it's kind of grossly misrepresented.
Hmm.
It's usually like another big scary word that they throw in when, you know, the person is in a hospital or they're experiencing some sort of psychosis or whatever. And it's not accurately explained. It's definitely not accurately portrayed. Um, but other than that, yeah, that would be
So
the only time.
so basically, what you're saying is not a lot of the there's not a lot of studies with regulatory, medical or medical professionals, psychology, and the media gets a hold of it, and they essentially align it with schizophrenia or stuff like that, right?
Yeah, like there have been studies, there are studies, but they're in very specific places. The tests that I've seen, they're really simple. Um, there was like I think this was a news report, but it was kind of small, but it was like a general explanation like, hey, you can test yourself to see if you have this because it's really not hard to notice whether or not you have it. But it's not it's kind of just not a big deal, I guess. Yeah.
I mean, I feel like there has been a little bit more education in that arena. I know for me, I never heard of it until I met you, and then so of course, uh, looking things up to educate myself on, what. Uh, Although you're very helpful in explaining that stuff, I still wanted to just take my time and spend my time on um, educating myself on it. And so I did run across some things here and there on social media and um, on on the internet, doing searches and finding things. And that, like you said, you tend to study more studies that are credible, and looking at what the potentials are. So I personally believe that, it might be a slow process because it is a super minority. However, it's good, you know, slowly but surely people are learning some on some level about it. And so it is intriguing, and for me, as like you said earlier, like I'm guilty of getting excited about some of it, but thank goodness I had someone that could steer me in my questioning
Well,
when
I
it
was
comes to that too. So yeah, so that moves it into you were what it was like. Didn't sound like a lot of fun at all. And of course, always figuring out what's going on is scary. And you're developing into a world, and then now you had an understanding that everybody was like you, and now you're in that space of understanding that not everybody is like you. And then you're introduced to what synesthesia is, and that's helping you. It's, I'm sure, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but on some level, I know how it is with finding out what I can identify with as being why I am this way. And then, so there's comfort in that. And then, what am I going to do about it? So, in that part of your story, what happened?
Um, it took it took long, long time. Um, uh, I just had to
You were still on the pills at that time, or you were coming off of the pills?
I started coming off of the pills once I actually learned what my condition was
Hmm.
and why it was hurting me so much. Because the thing about it is that I'm I'm not, it's not just that my senses overlap, it's that I'm sensory sensitive. I'm hypersensitive to light and sound stimulation. The daytime feels, I mean, not just for the obvious reasons, but the daytime feels louder than the nighttime. Um, you know, just like when I'm experiencing the overlapping sensory perceptions, they're that much more intensified. So, um, it's like when I realized that, like my body is going is it's like my nervous system is absorbing all of this physical stress because you're just getting overloaded. You have a whole bunch of just things like just like a rainbow cascade falling into your brain and into your eyes and into your ears and into your mouth. And that's what makes everything hurt so much because your body is stressed out, your muscles are tense, you can't really do anything. And yeah, like physical stress causes a lot of psychological damage for those who don't know that kind of thing. Um, but I ended up learning about cannabis as it happens from the same guy who actually revealed to me, like, yeah, synesthesia is a thing and you definitely have it. So I had to learn to one accept that cannabis wasn't just the like the drug of the revolution and everything. Um, so it actually is a plant and it's been used before and it's it has a very, very old history and everything, but also that it was actually a medicine. There's like, there's the stigma of like, because I've had to deal with this. There's the stigma of, oh, cannabis is a drug. And well, if you don't feel good when you're not taking it, well, then maybe you should just stop taking it. I'm like, you wouldn't say that to somebody on conventional medication. You wouldn't tell them like not to take your meds every day. Although, to be clear, when I was on my pills, I had adults around me who were asking me, do you have to take your meds every day? I ended up losing my job because like my employers didn't like the idea that I took these pills that made me so lethargic, even though it didn't greatly affect my work performance. But the idea of people taking any kind of medication, it seems, is really uncomfortable.
Hmm.
It makes people really uncomfortable. But then you're taking something of a more illicit nature and you're treating it like an actual medicine. And yeah, it's like I kind of felt I felt like this kind of guilt, like I feel better. I've never felt so good in my life before. And they're like, oh, that's the drug talking. I'm like, no, that's the relief from the pain that's talking. It's the fact that my head isn't spinning a million miles a second. My body isn't tense. Like I'm wearing a wetsuit that's two sizes too small and it's soaked in warm water. I'm not getting dizzy and disoriented from all of the flashes of color and flavors that are entering my mouth from all the sounds that I hear in an urban environment. Um, so eventually I ended up moving to California for a while to get a consistent supply of meds and also really take that time to really feel myself out and think about what I wanted to do in the world because I was discovering that my limitations were real limitations. It's really not simply in my head. I'm not like sick. I have a condition and it puts limitations on me and I got to navigate my way through that. I got to do something that isn't too intense. I gotta find something where I can take steps to mitigate the damage, like wearing earplugs and wearing my sunglasses and like taking cannabis if and when you can. My options are pretty limited, but then I found but then I ended up getting a job working at a spa. And I found that I could actually do that just fine because it's a very chill environment.
Mm-hmm.
You're not trying to be bombarded with a whole bunch of sound because nobody here is trying to be bombarded with sound.
Mm-hmm.
It's a chill space. You go home, you work as the receptionist and the towel boy and the janitor. The music is nice and chill. The people are friendly. The lighting is low. And then you clock out at sunset and you just go home, take your paycheck, have a beer or whatever on a Friday or whatever. Just stay out of the chaos as much as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Um, when I was struggling for work, I would do pretty much anything. I worked as a barback. The only saving grace with that job was the fact that the lights were so dim because the music is loud and
Yeah.
you're running back and forth getting stuff. I was okay doing it, but I knew I couldn't do it forever. Um, Working other retail jobs, they weren't too noisy or too difficult, but the lights are too bright and you're around a bunch of people, so you're feeling a whole bunch of stuff. So I knew I couldn't do that forever. Like in one way or another, the working environment just wasn't great. Like I wanted to do construction for a while, but it's like you're not gonna last on a construction site because all those heavy sound vibrations and everything, you're
Mm-hmm.
not, even when I have my earplugs in, I feel it through the grounds, I feel it in the air, and I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
I can't do that. So yeah, when I found work at a spa and I found that I could do that, I was like, and then I also found that my community really likes that I'm running a spa and that they can come there and hang out and it's a nice chill space and everything feels nice and everything sounds nice and it's a nice little getaway space that a lot of people that can't really afford themselves or don't really afford themselves. And the fact that I was able to do that and that everybody liked me doing that, I said, okay, I've found my retirement career. Or I mean, not my retirement career, my career that I will work until retirement. And that's kind of the goal now. That's
That's
what I'm working on.
yeah. That's the movement in which you found a community and a place where you could be connecting and comfortable and um, not having like extreme episodes and
and
whatnot.
and they're really, it's funny. I also learned that when people are in a more peaceful environment, they're more receptive to other people's eccentricities or limitations. Like a lot of my the customers that I had at the time, they ended up, just we started getting personal a little bit and they asked me, like, I've seen you out in public and you're always wearing sunglasses, or I've seen you out in public and I see you have earplugs in. And then I tell them about my synesthesia and everything. And they go like, oh, so this place is like perfect for you to work in. I'm like, yeah, yeah.
Right. Okay. So what 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 had happened? It was. I'm sure it was nice to finally find a spot where you definitely felt comfortable, welcome, and so over those lessons of going back and forth between um, not knowing into knowing and then testing the waters for what was going to work for you. What were your experiences with connecting with people? And finally, like you said, you start to share with others, and essentially you're building a network, and you're, I would say, beginning to come into yourself, and I'm thinking that this was around the time when you and I met, and because you were very informative with me when it came to that. So, and it was very helpful. So, what what was your experience moving into like actually being able to practice comfort zones and uh, working with what you had and finding solutions that made connections and networks happen for you?
A lot of trial and error.
Yeah,
um,
yeah,
well,
I believe that.
well, the truth of it is, like, so I mean, we knew the same people at that time.
Hmm.
Um, like, and I don't have to tell you, the crowd was very much, they enjoyed their parties,
Hmm.
but
Yeah.
I don't know, like they liked me enough. I mean, I got to live with them. Um, but Because like I wanted to be part of the crowd. Not really part of the crowd, but I just wanted to enjoy with everybody. I wanted to
Hmm.
be part of the community. I liked that I actually got to be part of a whole, you know? Like a whole.
Hmm.
Um but
Yeah, finding out that you could communicate with people and educate them on it, and that you found a community of people that were accepting. And yeah, I understand that completely. Yeah.
yeah, but it was just I had to start I honestly had to start accepting in myself. I'm like, yeah, everybody's going into these really awesome and bright and shiny places. They want me to come along with them. But I've always had a hard time saying no,
Hmm.
mainly because I've never really been allowed to say no. It's like, no, you don't have a choice. You have to do this. But I do want to be around people that I enjoy, especially when they enjoy me too. But I can't be wherever in all the places that they go to. I really do need to just be in a chill space.
Hmm.
I can't keep up with them. Like I can,
Hmm.
but it comes at a cost,
Hmm.
and it's a health cost. So I'm like, yeah, I know you think I can do this. I know you want to believe that I can do this, and I want to do this, but I have to recognize, like limitations. I mean, it's like, people, like, I push my boundaries every now and then. It's how I know I still have them.
Hmm.
Um,
So what? Yeah, what was your experience? I'm assuming it was draining, and you would put it off, and then you would have episode like major episode
yeah,
things like that.
yeah. And that's the part that's hard, because when you're trying to be like everybody else, but you know that you shouldn't, and you know that you can't, and you know what's going to happen when
Hmm.
you try too hard. It's just like, yeah, you're like, or, well, I would have like kind of not really like a breakdown, but more like just I burnt out severely,
Hmm.
where I'm just like, I can't, like, no, shh, 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 go away. It's like, what is it? When people describe, I think it's like when people describe having a hangover and they're really, really sound and light sensitive. Like I've seen this in the movies all the time, where it's like, they're like, no, no, like, it's like, come back tomorrow.
Hmm.
It's like, turn the lights out or something. But then I'm like, no, I have to go to work. It's like, no, I have to feel like I'm hungover and I have to go to work. I can't do this. I didn't even drink last night. I just went to a party and hung out with a bunch of friends, and it was a good time and everything, but I felt so drained and so burnt out. I was so happy to go to bed, and everybody else was still up.
Hmm.
But you can't do. I mean, I know it's hard to tell yourself this, but it's like, because you want to do all the things, but you
Hmm.
can't do all the things. You have to find something else. Your friends will love you. Your real friends will love you. You'll be fine. they'll come over to your house, or you'll have like a quiet night out or something. Like
Mhm.
you guys can stay home and watch a movie or whatever. But it's like, yeah, I mean, I kind of talk about this in my book because like one of the biggest parallels that I'm making is like where people like me are kind of like fairy tale creatures because people are always going like, I've never heard of anything like that before. I've never met somebody like you before. It sounds like you're on psychedelics all day. And I'm like, yeah, I've heard that so many million times right now. I wish I had a penny for every time I heard it. but but it's like, yeah, you end up like you start end up like I wouldn't like look in the mirror and see this, but it was just kind of like one of those like reflective moments where I'm like this whole situation is reminding me of some fairy tale that I heard about where you have this like this half fey character or whatever, and you know they can't go to these places because it'll expose their magical nature or something, or they have to wear a human face all the time, and then when they get into their house that's hidden from public view, they take off the mask, and then you see that they have pointy ears and weird colored eyes or something, or it's like the what is it? There's been like there have been so many werewolf pieces of media for like the last 110 years or something. But it's like you'll have the one kid in high school and he's got the super sense of smell and super sense of hearing, and everybody knows like I think that guy's a werewolf. Um, and it's just like, yeah, you end up becoming that character. You don't mean to.
Mhm.
And it's not necessarily helpful either because not everybody wants to deal with that.
Mhm.
Like you have trouble finding work because
It can be isolating.
yeah, and you can't it's like you can't deal with the sound, all right? Well, you can't have this job. Like you can't deal with the light. Well, you can't have this job. There's I would never I would never work in a hospital because that's just way too much. I've been in a hospital, I've been around all these people, and I've felt all these things, and I'm like, I can't. Like, doctors and nurses are troopers. I don't know how you deal with that. I have a sister, and she's a nurse, and I'm like, well, you're a Long Island woman. I know you're a tough cookie, so good on you. But still, it's like, yeah, you have to, you have to learn to say no. You can't say yes all the time. You'll have employers that sit there and go like, oh, you need to do this, and you're gonna have to sit there and go, then I guess I need to find another job, and that's just what you have to do. You have to. You can't say no. I mean, you can't say no all the time, not to yourself.
Right. You get to take care of yourself.
Yeah.
So, okay. Um, so those are some of the lessons, and you've had a pretty steady go from that point where you started to learn your parameters and you started to be able to function in the places and had less episode time and more um, time for creativity and growth and being able to move into your expression and all of that. So, what are some of the positives from that side of um, the the journey? What are some of the positives? What are some of the favorite things and the beautiful things that you've experienced and into writing your book? What are some of the lessons that have come from that? And on the other side, looking back and seeing where all that started from, and understanding that you're moving away from a victim mentality into a um, an actual functioning, loving, compassionate human being that enjoys being around people who are loving and compassionate and doing their thing and being creative as well. What is what is that like?
Uh, well, yeah, like one of the advantages is, or I don't want to. It sounds weird calling it an advantage, but it's like when I've had to be in the shadows a lot, but I've also had to listen to a lot of people because um I'm a little socially okay. I'm pretty socially inept, so I'm always having to take cues from people and learn, like, and memorize context and everything.
Mhm.
But so, like, my mirror touch synesthesia, I'm feeling people's emotional states. So I end up, because I end up taking a back seat to everything. I end up being the observer, and because I'm feeling what they're feeling, I'm like, sometimes I'll sit there and go, I don't understand where these feelings are coming from, and then I go, oh, that's what that is. There are some emotional sensations that I don't really have an understanding of, but I've learned how to recognize them and how to, it's like, and how to be more, I guess you'd say, forgiving of people. Because I mean, I'm a fairy tale creature. I'm not supposed to exist. I belong in the dusty tomes on somebody's shelf somewhere. Nobody expects to run into me or anything like me.
Mhm.
So so yeah, like, people get a little freaked out, and you just, but then it's like you learn but you learn that, like, they're getting freaked out because of their kind of life experiences or even lack thereof, and you learn a whole lot about the messy complications of just being normal. I mean, I feel like it's weird and difficult being, well, weird and difficult, but but yeah, it's just like, but I kind of feel like, I kind of feel a little lucky where I'm like, yeah, I I found that, I don't fit into these narratives of normality anyway, so I'm just going to make my own thing, and I'm just happy and that I'm lucky enough to find something that fits me and that serves my community. But, like, other people, they're experiencing, they're not experiencing the psychedelicness of reality or anything, but they're still dealing with a lot of confusion, a lot of doubt, a lot of just, well, just madness in the world. And then, because I'm always off to the side, and because I need to be chill all the time, I need to be the nice, calm guy that you can just sit next to, and they sit next to me and they talk to me, and then they end up being really, really nice. And then I tell them about me, and they go like, "Holy crap!" And I'm like, "Yeah, but no, you're dealing with stuff too, and that sucks. I'm sorry." And yeah, we end up reaching an understanding. It doesn't happen. It doesn't happen that often, but then again, I have to isolate myself most of the time. Like, I live out on the edge of the city, in the middle of the woods, like literally surrounded by trees, deer coming through the yard and everything, the possum that visits every now and then, the eastern king snake that keeps the copperhead from, like, wandering through the property. Like, I am outside of everything because I have to be, because I can't be where everybody else is, which kind of makes it easier for people to come to me, and then we just end up learning about each other. We vent to each other. I don't give people massages or anything, not professionally anymore, but, like, but you still get to learn about people. You still get to
Mhm.
be their comfort. And I was like, well, at least I can do that. I can be a comfort.
Has writing your book helped?
Yeah. Yeah. It was it was kind of touch and go, because you have to go through a whole bunch of bad memories, and then
Mhm.
but it's like, it's but that's actually kind of good, because it's a reminder. I'm like, well, first of all, you're not crazy. I know you thought you were crazy. You were pretty convinced that you were crazy. And then you found out that you weren't, because you found people who looked at you and saw that you're still human too.
Mm.
And then like, yeah, I get to like figure everything out. I get to learn more about myself and the world. You also kind of learn that the world itself has forgotten a lot. And that's part of the book too, like reminding people like,
Nice.
yeah, your fairy tales are real, but they're not fairy tales. They're humans and they're your neighbors.
Yeah. So, and you've been able to, it sounds like to me, you've been able to, um, identify the humanness in the people that may or may not in your past have been receptive to who you are and who you were. However, you've been able to see their humanness and have uh, a reflection of being, at least carry a vulnerability for yourself in that reflection. And so understanding that they are human and they have been brought up a certain way, or however it is, you're able to see from your writing and telling your story and having the latter experiences in your life be that, oh, I have this, and thank goodness I found something. Um, and to me, in my experience, has been that you have an ability to move in creativity in a way that you didn't feel like you were going to be able to before, and that's what
Mhm.
that lesson sounds like, is that actually taking the action to write down your experiences has been the foundation and support for you to remove yourself from the being, not that these things, like, not that you weren't being treated poorly by those who didn't feel or didn't have the ability to take the time um, to see you for who you were, or stop and say, hey, let's figure this out. That would have been nice.
Mm.
I know that, you know, however, in my experiences, that would have been nice if that was the case. And that's not always the case for a lot of people. And so to be able to be in this different, for me, is like you're expressing a different way of being and seeing and taking on the world. And a lot of it has to do with you writing. And of course, a lot of it has to do with life lessons
Yeah.
growing up, and a lot of things that every one of us on the planet faces. However, with your experience, there are some differences. So, you know, I appreciate um, you sharing that information with us. And I am excited to read the book, really. And I would, we've probably got another, 20 or 30 minutes if you want. We've got plenty of time. We can talk for however long as you want.
Well, I'm frankly terrified for people to start reading this book because I'm like, oh God, I've, I've been exposed. I've exposed. I've exposed the wizarding world. Somebody's gonna, like, they're gonna get the Dementors on me or something. uh,
well, yeah, I feel like in that sense you're protected. So, um, yeah, like whatever you'd like to add at this point.
I think a lot of people nowadays are, well, I mean, depending on how online you are, uh, I think a lot of people are like learning to just like be better towards each other, like, and not just sit there and assume that people know this or that, or or that they're this or this lucky. Like, um, one thing a lot of people don't know about me is that I originally grew up upper middle class, and like, and that's kind of where a lot of that attitude from the adults, where it's like you can't talk about mental health or anything because it's embarrassing, because it's a threat to their status. Um, like, but
Yeah, it's a very real thing. Yeah.
yeah, but I don't really relate to upper middle class people. I kind of find them to be a bunch of snoots, and they don't think too well of other people below their station. Um, but
They
I was like,
see them as below their station is the
yeah,
problem. Yeah.
but I was always friends with people, with the kids from the other side of the railroad tracks. I mean, literally, my house faced the railroad tracks, and I had friends on the other side of it. So I'm like, yeah, yeah, no, um, people today, um, like I said, depending on how online you are, like, I feel like people are getting better at it. Like, I've, like, just within like the last 6 months, I've actually met. It's usually younger people. Of course it is. Of course it's the younger generation. But yeah, I've
Right.
met a few of these kids where they actually know what synesthesia is, and they're like, "Oh yeah, I have a friend like that. He has the thing where he, like, where all of his sounds translate into colors." I'm like, "Yeah, see," and
That's
now,
very
you know
cool.
what? We're not going to mention that guy. We don't need to mention that other guy. Um, it's
Okay.
like, no, he's kind of an embarrassment right now. Um, but no, yeah, there are people, and they're learning about, they're learning about people. They're actually learning about people,
Hmm.
and I'm kind of just like, ah, all right, it's all right, it's getting better. It's okay. Remember, this wasn't happening 20 years ago. This wasn't happening 10 years ago. It's all right now. I mean, it's a little worrisome right now, but it's getting better. The fact that things are better than they were, and that there's more people who know, relatively more people who know. I don't know. But it's hopeful. It's scary, but it's hopeful. The only thing I feel bad about is that, because I'm from the 80s, and then we have all these kids today, and they don't know all the stuff that we grew up with. And I just keep thinking back to that Simpsons meme. I used to be with it, and then they changed what it was. Now everything that's it is weird and scary. It'll happen to you.
Yeah, that's true.
But they still know, like, but so, like, a bunch of these kids now, they have at least heard of
Hmm.
somebody like me, and I'm like,
Hmm.
okay, this is progress.
Hmm.
Because like 10 years ago, even when we met,
Hmm.
people were still kind of like, you sound like you're on drugs all the time. I'm like, no, no. Although I do have to take drugs to manage this all the time.
Right.
But yeah, no, I don't have that many people saying that now. I'll still get people that sound like, I'll still get people who say that I sound like I'm on the best trip of my life. Like, you sound like you're on the best mushroom trip of your life, the best acid trip of your life. I'm like,
I
guys,
saw the episodes that got me.
I was just like, guys, I've had mushroom trips and I've had acid trips. This is not the same. The mushroom trip and the acid trip, that's like a full body and brain decompression. Like, somebody opened up the spillways and the vent shafts, and
It
like,
releases the pressure for you.
yeah, it's so much better. I'm like, oh my God, I
That's
can
awesome.
move. I can breathe. And then I go back to work.
Yeah, sure. Have you ever tried like microdosing or anything like that with mushrooms and whatnot?
I never saw the point to microdosing. Like, I would have enough mushrooms to fill the palm of my hand, and I would eat it all at once
Hmm.
with tea, because that stuff tastes so weird.
Hmm.
But yeah, and I'll just go through like 8 or 9 hours, and it's like I have a whole, like, it's like, people talk about the visual sensations all the time,
Hmm.
and they talk about seeing the weirdest things. And I gotta be honest, you know, I've heard people who talk like all this like amazing trippy stuff that they experienced on DMT, and I'm one of those people who can't even smell it or taste it, and it doesn't affect me whatsoever.
Wow.
But
Wow.
it's like, but yeah, they'll talk about visuals like that, and I'm just sitting here going like, yeah, all I feel is every cell in my body kind of expanding and contracting in a very massaging way.
Hmm.
The visual sensations that I get from sounds and whatnot, it slows down, gets nice and slow. It's like there's a sound wave coming, brace for impact, and it's like I'm like, oh wow. Wow, that didn't hurt nearly as much as it normally does. And then yeah, I had that for about 8 hours and I just feel great. And then when it's over, um I'm like, oh, it's a lovely day today.
Yeah, there's no like need for a recovery period. You're just into
That
a
was the recovery period.
right, right, the whole thing. Yeah, the experience. Yeah, that's pretty amazing. I mean, that's pretty awesome. And so, okay, so do you think I do have a question actually. Do you think that your book will be put on a ban list, or do you think you're going to have to write another one to do that?
You are never gonna find this book in Florida. I'm sorry. You're gonna have to go to Georgia and like get it off of the shelf or something. Just no, sorry. You're gonna have to if you really want to. If you can, if somebody isn't letting you order it online, then you're just gonna have to go to the state where they're not being crazy and acting like a bunch of
That's
like a bunch of
excellent.
Nazguls and burning books and stuff. And like, yeah, no, we can't do that.
Excellent answer. Excellent answer. Okay, so the other question that I had was as far as your gender assignment. You know, Mr. Wolf is a thing, and
That's a
are
thing.
you fluid with presenting as, or are you?
Is it my shirt? What did I do?
I'm just curious, just out of
No, I'm
curiosity.
just a dude. I mean, I have trans friends, and
Sure.
like
Yeah.
I think that whole thing is funny because like it was never, you know, we're not going to talk about this latest generation. We're just going to talk about like millennials and Gen Xers because people our age, you know, I heard about trans people when I was 5.
Yeah.
Like I've heard about all this stuff. I've known about this stuff for decades. Like everybody else is just starting to go crazy. I'm like, we've never seen this before. I'm like, because you didn't want to.
Yeah.
It's like me. People like me have been around for a while.
Yeah.
Ancient Greece knew about people like me. And it's like, well, we didn't know you existed. I'm like, that's why I'm a fairy tale creature, because you don't want me to exist.
Wait, you're saying that people in ancient Greece had understanding of synesthesia?
Yeah, this stuff is old.
Wait, explain that.
I, I'm not from
How?
ancient Greece. I'm not.
Well, how did you find that out? What do you
I don't
mean?
know. It's
Where's
on
the
records.
reference?
Yeah, it's in records.
Are you serious?
Yeah, like that was one of the first things I learned going to Wikipedia, and then I end up looking up like Greek history and philosophy and stuff like that. They actually talked about this stuff. Like none of this stuff is new. I think like in some cultures,
That's incredible.
yeah, like in some cultures, like you would if somebody like you have somebody like me born into the tribe or the village or whatever, I'd be like the shaman or
Mm-hmm.
somebody because I'm in touch with all this stuff or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But that's like, but yeah, in ancient times, I'm like, yeah, you want to
Yeah, it
talk
was
to the medicine
embraced.
man.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I had an understanding that, like, in other words, I don't see or understand you as being some sort of like phenomena that doesn't like that's brand new. I just see as being something that um in our society, the way that it has been built is um there's a polarity that exists when it comes to accepting people for who they are versus who you need to be a quote unquote successful person. I mean, essentially, that's why I started doing this podcast and doing these interviews, is because I don't see success as um, what kind of monetary accumulation you have, or what kind of house you have, et cetera, et cetera. All of the things that say, this person's successful because they affect this many people, and they've brought this many people to an awareness. And I don't even see it that way either. I see who's finding out about themselves, who's doing the work to create a space for themselves and for others, um, to appreciate their creativity, to who is actually learning in a way that I don't even care how many degrees you have. I don't care. I mean, I understand that those people offer um value to our society and community. I do. I'm not saying that any of those people are bad. I believe that they are um, excellent. There are plenty of excellent, amazing people within those descriptions of what they are to be successful. However, I know people like yourself and like others that I've interviewed, that they're truly amazing people. They're truly gifted, and they're truly, sincerely, and genuinely um, in the moment, like, and are willing to be connected and have connection with you and with your community, their community, with who they are, and they're effective in that. And so for me, that's been something that's been really important. And a lot of people ask me, well, what are you doing with your you know with your interview, your podcast and whatnot, and having, like, coming up with an explanation. And sometimes, yes, I've said to myself, well, you're just not going to like what the purpose is behind it, because you may not understand it. However, um as I continue doing this, and I continue to actually get the people that I want to have sitting here, like yourself, like,
Oh,
thrilled to have you here and doing what you're doing and expressing it, it's like, I start to see, like, yeah, like, it doesn't it really, really, really does not have to do with um the controversies of the world. It doesn't have to do with, how many cars somebody has. There's plenty of people, educated and not educated, that are practicing their forms of studies, and aren't practicing their forms of studies, that are completely intelligent, thoughtful, expressive, creative human beings, and they shine a light that nobody else can shine. And so, why wouldn't that be the thing that people do interviews about?
because it doesn't make them money.
Right, right, right. That's so true. Like, um, it can seem like not a moneymaker, right? It can seem like not a moneymaker, but the reality is it's just sold as not a moneymaker.
You know, it's funny. You
But
just reminded me.
anybody and everybody that is, I don't mean to interrupt you, but
No, you get.
anybody and everybody that has done it, right, that has been vulnerable enough to express it, whether they're educated or not, right, has been successful at it. That's the truth. It's just that it's a thinly hidden veil of what they know what to do. Like, I know what I'm doing because I studied these things and I got this amount of money and I've got these amount of accolades because I've applied to these awards. I applied to this award and I got that award. I applied to this award, I got this award. I applied to that award. I applied for this thing and I got this thing and I have 10 cars and blah blah blah. That's kind of today's stuff. However, there's plenty of past authors and books from people who've studied law, that study government, that became people in government. And what is the things that they do? They write, we're talking about past stuff. So they've expressed themselves in a creative way that was different than everyone else. And it worked. And it created a space for people to stop, take a look, and change. That's what they did. And so it's the same thing. Anybody that this is going out to is learning about Mr. Wolf and what he does and what he has done. And um, bottom line is that vibration is going to get through regardless. So back to your thought. I didn't mean it. I just wanted to share that part.
No, I was like, because you were talking about like the money part and everything, and where was this? This was so I was in Vegas at the time. And Ridley Scott, they were going to make a TV show about people with synesthesia. I emailed who did I email? I think I emailed one of the producers. I wasn't trying to get anything or anything. I was just like I was actually excited about, the prospect of, there being like an accurate media representation of people with synesthesia. So I just sent him a simple little letter. I'm like, "Hey, um you're making a show about a whole about a whole bunch of people here that nobody's really talking about. Please don't make us look like fairy tale creatures. Thank you." He ended up emailing me back like the next day or
Oh, wow.
something, and he was like, he asked, it's like, and I think he asked me to like be a like if I could be like a consultant or something. And I'm like, I'm in Vegas right now. But the TV show itself didn't ended up it never got off the ground.
Really?
And I always wonder, I'm like, because and that used to be my hesitation with writing the book, because I was just like, if they didn't think that they could make a TV show out of it, am I really going to write a book about my life experiences? And is anybody actually going to give a damn about it? I'm like, but after a while, I was just like, you know what? I'm still not hearing about anything. I always wonder if there's somebody else out there who's not having a good time dealing with this. Um, like, at worst, you know, somebody, like just like one person or a few people read it and then it's helpful to them. At best, I don't know. Maybe it helps me fund my small business. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But at least the information will be out there, because I definitely would have loved to have had had this book of information when I was 5 or
Mm-hmm.
10. I definitely would have liked to have had access to this information when I was 18.
Well, I'm so glad that you've written it, and I'm so glad that it's close to being finished, and that we can even mention it on this right now because it's really exciting for that to. I'm ready to read it. So please publish it soon.
Well, I mean, like technically speaking, it's in the backpack right behind you.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I just have to proofread everything. I can't believe how many like typing errors I make. Ugh. It's like, well, you're trying to get everything down. And I'm like, yeah, I know, but I've had to proofread this thing like 5 times already. And I'm just like, how did I miss that? I made this mistake. How did I miss this the last time I went through this? It's like, mhm. So
Well, I know you've been working on it for a long time, and you've put a lot of work into it. So I'm proud of you for that too. So, um, is there anything, any last, is there something that you would like to tell, um, anyone who has synesthesia or anyone who is experiencing someone that may have synesthesia, what you can tell them? Is there a place to direct them to, including your social media and websites?
um I mean, I have a Facebook, but there isn't really much on it. I like do it's like I'm trying to get I try to put illustrative graphic images of synesthetic experiences on there.
Mm-hmm.
Um and it's like I gotta redo it, but it'll be back up again soon, and it's just under my name. Um
Under Mr. Wolf?
Wulfric Hugo Osborne.
Okay.
Yes, I know I have a weird name. I'm sorry.
Wulfric Hugo Osborne.
Yeah.
Okay.
But tips and tricks. Um there are some good custom earplugs available on Amazon. They're called decibels. Decibels with a Z, like like Taurus, like bull. I love those. Sunglasses, always a helpful. Um uh Low caffeine. Don't give yourself the extra stimulation. It's probably not a good idea. Um Heavy fabrics are nice. Give them a try. You can get a weighted blanket, might help you sleep better. I wish I had this. I have a weighted blanket now. I wish I had it. Oh my god, in high school. Oh my god, I wish I had that thing. Um, mm, don't drink to excess and drink responsibly. Um, let's see.
You mean alcohol,
Yeah.
right? Okay.
It's like, yeah, I've met a couple of synesthetes where they were just like, yeah, I kind of have a drink on a regular basis because I get headaches. I personally get migraines and from all the light and sound stimulation, especially the light stimulation. Um, if you're one of those kids who is having a major migraine, it's like because of your sensory processing, and the teacher is passing out the French test the minute you start having the migraine, it'll be okay. Yes, everybody's gonna think that you're faking it. Don't worry about it. You'll deal with it later, and just laugh about it. Just laugh about it. Just laugh at yourself about it later, and you'll be okay. Just yeah, it happens sometimes.
Potentially finding some groups on Facebook as well. I'm sure there's got to be one or two at least, or some sort of community that would be open to understanding.
I would think so. I would hope so. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not really on Facebook much anymore. It's kind of a headache. Like
Okay.
visually, it's a headache.
Right. Okay.
But that's how I
Okay.
keep in touch with all my friends. It's
Right. Right.
like you can't get rid of it anymore.
Yeah. No, you can't. Well, Mr. Wolf, I again absolutely appreciate and am so happy that I got to have this interview with you. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, guys. Well, remember to click like, share, and subscribe um, to the channel, and we'll see you again next time.
West Windows Bueno, a battered potato, simple solar cellular charger, but I need a larger amount of chip, because every pop-up make my USB coffee warmer.
I'm just trying to document this.
Semantic skin my brain to find 30,000 viruses, hint that acid rain had rendered my NTFS useless, and all my drive's been reformatted. Ends of my document, personal tax information folder, explorers cause errors and need to be I'm left broken hearted, I entered safe mode about 3 years ago, never does he processes populate my test management. Faking the funk could take a dump on my network, call me the administrative account holder, a cold users, bandwidth of BCC night, bring your 212 a crawl, claim you know of no reason at all, the internet to be slow and unresponsive, my email works but I can't get on the web, better call Gates before you back up your says he plays, platters, refined, drive dealers, feels not needed to ramble, but is there any way I can get Discovery Channel on my Windows Media Player? DR hate, make me wanna hack all I see, repost FTP for free, whether ATL, IDE, mobile technology, or dual core. I can play all day, F since the days of 98, I don't find the time I allocate, taking butts from the stack.